for using the word Negro in the United States Army's Regulations Manual. This was just 5-6 months ago. Not even kidding. And who was heading that charge was the man himself, Mr. Wolf Blitzer from CNN, taking the U.S. Army to task over the use of the word Negro. I guess Mr. Blitzer forgot that the great Dr. Martin Luther King and the entire civil rights movement, one of the primary things that they were fighting for in that movement was what? What do you think that was? That was to have blacks be completely legally recognized as Negroes. That's their word. That's what they wanted in 1961, 2, and 3. And that's, of course, what they ultimately got, which is when, of course, the U.S. Army complied and changed their rules and regulations manuals to include the word Negro to maintain proper address of that particular ethnic group. So one could actually say that the PC movement, even way back in 1963, was trying to be fair and just. And look what happened there. Now the U.S. Army gets taken to task, has to write apologies, and change that manual and change that word that Martin Luther King fought to his death to make sure was used with regards to his people. So that whole kind of PC drive, you know, equality for everybody, Black Lives Matter, yada, yada, yada. You see why I'm kind of not feeling the love here, gang? Do you kind of get it now? Can you say morons? I knew you could. Well, listen, it's time for us to go for our, last, I guess, commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about another study that was just released about black girls who are suspended from school 6 times the rate of white girls. Yeah, back in 2.
And you are listening to Crash Talk with Christopher John Taylor, a.k.a. Crash Jesus, on HTLA Radio 1, New York.
It could be 7 in the morning.
Or 10 at night.
In Chilliwack, BC.
Or St. Peters, Nova Scotia.
It could be Michelle.
Or Murph.
Or Jen.
But whenever, wherever you order that cup of Tim Hortons Premium Blend Coffee,
You know that it's always fresh.
From Newfoundland and Labrador to Vancouver Island, Tim Hortons, a coffee all our own.
You walked into the hotel as a 5. But when she saw the room, you turned into a weird 7. When she saw the rooftop pool, you went to 11. You two should probably get a room. Oh, that's right. You already did. At Planet Earth's #1 accommodation site, Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
The hot new accessory, brows that wow. New from Maybelline, New York, it's Brow Drama, our first sculpting ball brush with tinted gel. Just sweep, then sculpt for bolder, sculpted brows. New Brow Drama. Get the look at Maybelline.com. Maybe it's Maybelline.
When we arrived at our hotel in New York, the porter was so incredibly careless with our bags. And the room they gave us, it was
beautiful.
A broom closet.
But the
worst part was the shower. My wife drying herself with the
Egyptian cotton towels.
Shower curtain defined that whole vacation for her. Don't just visit New York.
Visit TripAdvisor New York.
With millions of reviews, a visit to TripAdvisor makes any destination better.
Some said the U.S. has lost its innovative power. We said America is lighting the way as the innovation nation. Singular insights, Superior execution. That's the power of global connections. Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Voted top global research firm 2011, 12, and 13.
We're New York's best talk radio, HTLA Radio 1.
Well, back in my day, we didn't have problems with no blacks. Oh, yes. One more time, sweetheart. There you go. Well, welcome back to the show, Special Edition Crash Talk, because Jenny screwed up our Crash Talk last night. Yeah, it's all her fault. Blame her. The show, of course, is Crash Talk. The race is on, and of course, we're discussing race wars and all that good fun stuff. Equality, justice, reality. Right? Yeah, let's talk reality, people. And what is that reality? Well, kind of moving along to something I kind of like to say is, education. Let's talk about the education. Well, a new study out. Black girls are suspended 6 times more often than white girls from schools. Yeah. Black boys are suspended only 3 times as often as white boys, according to data from the U.S. Department of Education. The ratio isn't surprising. Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, the executive director of the African American Policy Forum and a Columbia University professor, says there's been a 2-decade-long discussion now about the racial disparity that boys face in school. But, of course, another statistic in the same report was also surprising. Black girls suspended 6 times more often than white girls, meaning there's a larger gap between black girls and white girls than black boys and white boys. Crenshaw says no one made... Oh, yes. Okay, that would be my, I don't know, satanic thing. Something going on there, I don't know. Crenshaw says no one made much of this number. The issue of black girls in education falls between the cracks, she says. To give it a national attention, Crenshaw co-authored a report, Black Girls Matter, Pushed Out, Over-Policed, and Underprotected, that focuses exclusively on challenges that girls of color face in school today. The imposition of harsh disciplinary policies in public schools is a well-known risk factor for stunted educational opportunities for black and Latino boys, the report says. Such punishments also negatively affect their female counterparts. The risks that black and other girls of color confront rarely receive full attention of researchers, advocates, policymakers, and funders. Girls of color are what Crenshaw calls, quote, doubly vulnerable, end quote. Like white girls, they face gender stereotypes. Like black boys, they face racial stereotypes. Girls tend to be disciplined when they do things that are non-normatively feminine, like when they get into a beef with another, she says. Crenshaw says that at the same time, blacks tend to be seen as threatening because, by nature, people assume they're more aggressive. Interesting statement there, and hold on to that one. I'll come back to it. Now, if you take those two stereotypes together in the form of black female body and you have double vulnerability. A 2010 study by Texas A&M researchers found teachers might respond more harshly to black girls because they, quote, seem to defy these traditional standards of femininity, which suggest that girls should be quiet, reserved, and submissive. Instead, black girls are assertive, independent, and emotionally resilient. I'll get back to that in a moment, too. Rinku Sen, executive director of the racial justice organization Race Forward, says she's seen black girls receive a lot harsher punishment. The The conversation about girls and schools has definitely not been as prominent as the conversation about boys and color and various kinds of discipline scenarios, she says. I'm glad to see that the issue of girls is getting some attention. Being suspended has bigger consequences than missing a couple of days of school. Girls who are suspended are much likelier to eventually drop out, and unsurprisingly, dropping out leads to low wages and unemployment. Now, this represents an acute problem for African American females due to the prevalence of single wage-earning families headed by women. Given the economic dependence of so many black children on a female wage owner, girls dropping out of high school is a critical socioeconomic concern. Crenshaw says this report and the dialogue is meant to start is just the first step. In the same way that we challenge black males' face wasn't seen as a social issue until researchers, advocates, and politicians began discussing it. She wants to bring the plight of black girls to the national level. That's what will create the political will create the political will to intervene in a meaningful way, she says. Sen also believes that those working for racial justice need to address gender. At Race Forward, we always think about our work as explicitly about race and not exclusively about race, she says. If you want to solve a problem for everyone, you need to look at it through different lenses. Race is just one lens. Gender is, of course, another. Very interesting points here, and some of the things that I wanted to bring up here, okay? This whole thing about black girls being more aggressive and assertive and all that good stuff. Well, girls of color, let's be honest here. They do face the gender stereotypes. They face the racial stereotypes. So, yeah, the numbers are going to obviously go worse for them. But here's an interesting thing. It seems to me, in going through this story, that, black girls are assertive, independent, and emotionally resilient, as opposed to the, quote, traditional standards of femininity, which suggest that girls should be quiet, reserved, and submissive. Now, here's some food for thought, people. Where do you think the traditional standards of femininity came from? Well, I can tell you, because Crash Man, like I said before the break, reads books. The traditional standards actually came from Europe, the traditional standards of which are still practiced today by black and white. Now, we've also mentioned this on Crash Talk before, too, haven't we? We've talked about those British blacks, which are nothing like the American blacks. No. And were they originally slaves? Yes, they were. It's a fact. They were shipped all over the world as slaves. They were the slave race. It's not America's fault. It's not your and my fault. It just happened, and it's history. But those traditional standards of femininity are the same as the traditional standards of being a male, being a man. What is it to be a man? Well, most men these days don't know. Why? Well, you can thank the feminists and you can thank the PC movement, because they have taken away man's very existence, his very meaning is gone. Now, who remembers the good old TV series? What was it? Leave It to Beaver or something? Oh, you wait till Ward gets home. Yeah, well, Ward was the man of the house, and he was the one to be feared and revered. It was his domain, and you were his kid. Yes, kind of like property, but that's the way it was. And it was traditional, and there wasn't a single person anywhere that had a problem with it. Now, what do we see in our sitcoms? What do we see in our movies? We see what's called beta males. Yes, there's actually been a scientific term for them made, because they're just yes dear, yes dear, yes dear. And that's been going on for the last 20 years in television and film. So it must be okay. But nobody seems to understand you're going against not only traditionalism, but you're also going against nature and nature's wiring. Men are built bigger. They have bigger musculature structures. It's for a reason. It's to work. It's to go out and hunt. It's to make that living. It's to support the family. It's to protect the family. Women are the child bearers and the nurturers. But now we're in this age where, a 13-year-old girl, her hole's her choice. Now we're in an age where gender fluidity is actually an accepted term for people that just don't have a freaking clue.